Giving. How was your day yesterday?
Very mellow.
Yeah.
We just stayed home, tried to beat the traffic. We're going to actually just talk to you, before the show. We're going to go up tomorrow to LA to see the grandma. Hopefully, beating some of the LA traffic. Probably not too much of it though.
You got to go visit Grandma. That's
Always.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Nice. Where she's from in LA? Or going
Yeah,
up to
Santa
LA?
Monica. That's where my dad grew up. That's kind of how we got started at fishing. Actually, he was he started going down pinheading on the Marina Del Rey boats, the Betty O. Shout out
Nice.
Betty O. That's one of the oldest sport fishing boats on the coast. I think it turned 100 last year.
Yes, I remember
Crazy.
that. I remember that.
And you know what's crazy? This is kind of a side, but like the Betty O, I just randomly did a Google search of it.
Yeah.
And it was originally a ferry boat to Catalina Island and back.
Yes.
And they would do all sorts of things. And then I think in like the 40s maybe, it was like redone as a fishing boat. And ever since it was, slaying the rock god.
It's interesting that you say that because I think they have a plaque on that boat saying exactly that, where it used to be
No
this
kidding.
and that, and it's got a crap ton of history.
It's
That's
crazy.
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, grandma doing great. But Marina Del Rey. My dad grew up there. It was cool. Also, the Gentleman is another classic boat.
Yes,
that was
up in
up there.
Channel Islands.
Yes.
Have you fished that?
No, it was. It looks real interesting though with the round stern.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's what the two boats my dad kind of grew up on.
That's cool.
It was cool.
That's awesome, man. Well, before we get started, make sure to go follow us on Instagram at CCA California. We actually just this episode we're debuting on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sit wave to the camera, Nate.
Hello.
Yep. We're testing the things out. So more to come in 2024 for sure. But without further ado, bay fishing. We came in here to
Sure.
talk a little bit about bay fishing
Yes.
and just to get some content going. But
Okay.
I know you've been doing a lot of videos from BD Outdoors and all that stuff on bay fishing.
Mm-hmm.
You in particular, you love the halibut, don't you?
I love it all. I love halibut in particular because they're a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah.
I was just kind of talking to my buddies about this. If I were to pick my favorite fish, it's got to be the spotties, spotted bay bass. I'll never get tired of them.
Yeah.
I think the only time I'm ever annoyed with the spotty is when I am drifting live bait for halibut and it gets like bendo, and you think it's the
course.
one and it's like a good spotty, but you're like, oh. But yeah, love the bay. San Diego Bay in particular, all the bays have their own kind of appeal. I think the more northern bays, I think in terms of bass fishing are better. They've got, more variety of the three species. I think they have bigger calicos, bigger sand bass, bigger spotties up in like Newport and Huntington and LA. But San Diego's got the variety. We've got all these different species, especially in the back. You've got, first off, all the sharks and the rays and the guitar fish and stuff that if you want to target is super fun. But also there's bonefish, there's corvina, the spotties, obviously. There is sand bass and calicos, but you got to kind of target them specifically more in the northern bay.
Sure.
And then obviously the halibut. It's a pretty phenomenal
Yeah.
inshore halibut fishery.
Huh, interesting. So since you started it, let's start with San Diego Bay.
Sure.
Typically, I've only fished, or I've spent most time fishing north of the bridge and going over the Navy base, and then obviously all the way out to the jetty and all that. Most productivity and everything as terms of just variety of species. What to a newbie or to a beginner and all that, where are you typically targeting first or going and working the area in San Diego Bay?
Yeah, sure. That's actually a good question. I mean, it depends completely on the time of year.
Sure.
And, we're kind of in a transition point right now in the fall. But, in the winter, I would say you're going to be focusing mainly on the back part of the bay, south of the bridge. And back there, it's not that hard to figure out once you get onto a basic pattern. And the pattern back there is all about finding structure and depth. And really the only structure out there is channel edges. I call structure just like a difference in depth. Right. So like out there, it's real dramatic. You'll go from 3 or 4 foot, flats, and it drops like a wall down to about 25. So you look at those little different points, you look at the corners of those edges, you look for the deepest points of those channels, and you kind of maybe drag a bait through there, or you kind of bump bottom like that, and you start to kind of initiate a little bit of a pattern.
Yeah.
And also, the further back you go, you can fish those shallow flats, And at certain times and at certain tides, the spotties can be absolutely wide open out there.
Nice.
So that's kind of the wintertime strategy. As the water starts warming up, you can fish that North Bay section, launching out of Shelter Island and fishing around the Navy base. But I would say you got to be just kind of hopscotching around and really keep track of water temp, depth, and current. Those are the three kind of main players that really play into a good bay bite. Is that, at certain times of the tide, the bass bite better. Certain times of the tide, the halibut bite better. Moving waters typically when I fish bass. Slack tide is typically when I'm focusing on the halibut. And tide, depth is another one. The fish will be all around, but they're going to be more keen to different presentations at different depths that I've seen. So, like the shallow fish, throw a paddle tail up there. One of my favorite baits is a shallow running crankbait, like a square bell. Like the KVD, like 1.5 square bell is epic, and you get such like aggressive bites on that. Another one is the spinning. I mean, the chatterbait, yeah, but I'm thinking of kind of blanking. A spinnerbait, yeah. I was on the tip of my tongue. Spinnerbait. Some like the warbait spinnerbait is awesome, especially in Mission Bay. That's a killer.
It's productive.
But that's kind of my shallow running stuff. When I go a little bit deeper, the submission jigs work great. Yeah. But the thing about them is that they're a pretty small profile, so it works kind of for and against you sometimes. Like when the bait is really small, it really helps kind of like match the hatch. But when they're eating bigger sardines or when there's like, bigger smelt out there, you just kind of tend to just pick through a lot of little ones before you get a bigger one on that. So when that happens, a 5-inch gulp jerk shad, white sardine, something like that on like a 3/8 ounce bullet head, and you cast that out ahead of the boat and you just bump bottom with it, sometimes that can be just as effective as a live bait. And I'm talking halibut.
Interesting.
But also bass, because they all live in the same area.
Were you getting into the not the phenomenon, but the popularity of slow pitch when it was like maybe the last year or two?
Oh yeah, totally. It's in the bay. I haven't really taken up too much of it. I'm just doing it like a spinning rod. I'm just kind of bouncing on different edges and stuff.
Right.
But like offshore, dude, it's so much fun. Like even just like out on the local kelp, like rocks and stuff, or just like reefs and things.
Right.
This past summer, I was doing that actually. Me and a buddy were doing that a couple of times up in the Oceanside ARs, but also in Dana Point. And really, really fun fishing. All on metal jigs, all on these real floppy rods, so you get like this 16 or 17 inch sand bass, which out there is fairly common actually. And I was pretty surprised by that. They're good graded fish. And you drop down a 40 or 60 gram jig and they inhale that thing, and it's a great time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And this is all on your skiff or on your boat, right?
Yeah, I got a little Lund. So it's a Lund 1775 Adventure. So it's almost 18 feet. It's a little aluminum center console, deep V, killer boat. But, you can get out there on the bay with anything.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, so this is in particular on your boat, but I mean, kayak anglers this can apply to almost everyone.
Absolutely, kayak anglers. When you're fishing from the shore, I would say San Diego Bay has some of the best opportunities around.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't done a ton of shore fishing at the different bays, so I'm not the best source for that. But I have done just like on the Shelter Island kind of area there. If you just walk the rocks and you're casting at a certain tide, I had a little ripper day before I was going to go fishing bluefin.
Yeah.
And I showed up like an hour early because he's in Konakai. I was like, I'm just going to cast around. And I ended up catching 2 halibut and like 3 bat rays. Nice. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So the thing about that, though, is that you really want to start looking at like the topo maps, especially when you're a shore angler, because there's some shorelines that are directly adjacent to a very steep drop off.
Explain to us what a topo map is.
Yeah. So like Navionics is a great site.
Gotcha.
Basically, It shows you depth lines, and it's very, very detailed. And when you look at that, that really kind of gives you an idea of what the bottom looks like. And you can really start to, first off, it gains you confidence, but you can really start to kind of pick apart the different areas you're fishing and know exactly why those fish are there. And that applies for a boat too. Yeah. Like it's crazy. I was, catching halibut in this one particular area, one after and then one trip over and again. And I checked the map, and no kidding, there's this little edge right there that kind of drops off. And you want to keep note of that.
Yeah.
And kind of think of that as a pattern where if there's a slight edge at 22 feet that drops to 24, if you see that at one point in the bay and it's biting, and you see a very similar kind of structure, maybe half a mile down somewhere else, fish that. Because those fish are going to be locating on those areas all throughout the bay, and you can develop those patterns to put together a 2 or 3 fish day.
Nice.
I'm talking halis,
Nice.
Yeah.
I always remember, I've done a little bit of halibut fishing in the bay. Probably the last time I did it was maybe a year or two ago. But when it comes to those ledges, kind of like what you said earlier, where it like just drops off from whatever 20 feet all the way down to 50 feet,
Yeah.
and that shelf. More often than not, I've been super productive just fishing that shelf, going up and down
yeah.
along the side, and it's right in between those buoys. The buoy markers are like clutch when it comes to the drifts for halibut.
Absolutely. It's crazy. Looking at the maps and looking at the buoys and kind of like piecing everything together, you'll start seeing that like the buoys mark not only the edges of the channels, but also points. There's underwater points that you never know were there that are just like dug into the sand way, way deep. It dropped from 30 feet and it goes to this little like point and then it goes to 50.
Yeah.
And right there on that little pinnacle is always going to be a fish magnet. That goes for all types of inshore fishing. Points are always points of, areas of interest for fish. And yeah, so use the buoys, especially in the back bay. Look at the markers, and they're all numbered. There's red ones and there's green ones, and they all have numbers. Use that, keep track of where you're catching fish, and just keep, if you kind of find something that works, try to kind of repeat it or do that drift again, because more often than not, there's going to be more down there.
Do you have that Navionics app?
I do.
Oh, it's worth the $25 a year without a doubt.
There's another one called iBoating Marine. It's
Okay.
not quite as advanced. It doesn't have as many like depth lines, but it's free and it's awesome.
Nice.
And it gives you basically the same stuff. It's like the light version.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
yeah, iBoating Marine. That's super helpful. I use it all the time on the bay.
Nice. And I mean, specifically with the Navionics, it's like you can track your track lines, you can track your speed. I mean, it goes into so much detail.
It's
and
super cool.
Yeah. Hell, even on land. I've done that before. I've tried
For sure.
Yeah, just driving around San Diego. I'm like, oh crap, forgot that.
Go on a hike or something, you can check your report.
Yeah,
Check your
yeah.
stuff.
So with us being in the fall time, almost getting into winter and all that, a lot of people kind of hang up the rods, hang up the tackle for the year, and saying, "Oh, Thanksgiving just passed." What is your message to those guys in terms of bay fishing? There's plenty of opportunity still, right?
Oh, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of the beginning of it, at least for the back bay, which is some of my favorite fishing, because a lot of the times, first off, the crowds are a lot thinner. There's not as many people out there. Like I was saying, once you piece together a sort of pattern, you'll look at the tides and you'll be like, all right, this upcoming Sunday, we got a great falling tide. We're going to start there. We're going to work our way back, And as the saying goes with tides too, you want to follow it in, you want to chase it out. And I've seen that actually to be very, very true. And what I mean by that is at the lower tide, you want to be at your kind of your northernmost spots, kind of by the mouth of the bay. And you basically want to be going in with the tide, following in, going deeper as it rises up. And
So top of the bay, incoming tide, and then
Yeah.
is it the exact opposite?
yeah,
going
so
up?
at the very top of the tide, as it starts to go back, that's when you want to start in the back and you want to work your way forward.
that's
And
a
because
good tip.
all of that stuff from the very back, there's all these like salt evaporators and these like ponds in the very back of the bay. At the low tide, those all drain out, and all of the krill and all of the stuff that live back there drains throughout the bay, and it all funnels through these little inlets through the back bay. And if you're there at the right tide, it can be absolutely wide. It can be super, super big for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is kind of the time when they start to bite. In
Interesting.
terms of halibut, I would say that the best times of year that I've seen is going to be February and March. February in particular being my best month. So, just kind of a sign,
Yeah.
this is, they're going to start biting for sure. And the weather is kind of staying pretty moderate this year so far. I'm crossing my fingers. But
Yeah.
last year, I did not do very much halibut fishing or bay fishing at all just because it was raining about once a week.
It's dumping every day.
So it was rough, But this summer, I pieced together a really good pattern. I'm still kind of on them. I kind of on a dry spot for the flat ones, though. I'm doing great with bay bass. I'm averaging 20 to 40 fish a trip.
Nice.
But with the halibut, I haven't caught a legal in like 2 months. But that kind of comes with the.
That's a dry spell for you?
It's just whatever, a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a fun fishery. It's just you get out there, it's calm water. It feels like a lake,
Yeah.
and you can just kind of relax and catch a bunch of fish.
Do you ever do nighttime fishing in the bay?
A couple of times. I want to do it more. I
Yeah.
kind of want to do like a lobster nighttime.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Like bass trip. Like my buddies want to go diving. And then I'm not huge on lobster, but I love fishing bass, especially at nighttime. So I do it all the time from the shore. But it would be fun. It'd be super fun, especially when like a nice calm night.
Right, right. I know our good friend Mr. Matt Florentino. You've been following him the last couple days. He's been getting those tankers.
Oh yeah,
Can you imagine those fish?
I want to. Yeah, I would love to catch those things. That's something that I really haven't. That's a fishery in San Diego Bay that I really am going to focus on this year is the bigger sand bass fishing. Because that all takes place in the North Bay, and that completely goes exactly against what I just said, that you want to focus in the back. There's plenty of fish to be caught in the North Bay, but you got to go real deep. You got to go 50 or 60 feet. You got to focus on that main channel as it's coming out, especially like around Ballast Point. And the baits, I'm still figuring that out. I'm sure it's not that hard. It's bass. You just want to get it down there. Flukes. I'm probably the submission jigs. I'm sure would kill it.
Yeah.
But that is something I'm going to start working on for sure.
Well, to that point, Nate, I mean, I think it just with almost anything, any type of fishery where you just have to put in your time and to actually just figure out, okay, where are the ledges? Where's the most productive spots? Where am I going to do, where's the tide going at what time? What, even to an extent, like what docks are hitting and what aren't.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, even the docks, they'll change like by the week.
Yeah.
Even sometimes by the day. There'll be some lines of docks that'll have like a fish on every piling, and then you come there next week and there's nothing there. It's wild. So yeah, keeping track of that is key.
Yeah. Yeah. It just takes time. It
Yeah.
is. So that's San Diego Bay. Since we're in San Diego, let's go up north, Mission Bay. I know a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot, but most people like to give it a little bit of crap just because of the inopportunity up there, or it's very slow or whatnot. But it still bites.
It does. It's harder to figure out. I think when you're really tuned into Mission Bay, you'll catch just as many, or if not more, fish than you would in San Diego.
Okay.
I think it's a different approach though, because it's different structure.
Right.
Not nearly as deep. There's really no edges. There's very few channels. When you get to the back, it's all eelgrass. So what I found about Mission is that you want to be really looking at current and health of eelgrass and bait. So like the real dead grass that's kind of in the back where it's just kind of still, kind of just like murky water, not the area you're going to be in. You're looking for those points or those kind of avenues of water that have access to the open flow, so there's that little bit of water movement in there, and the grass is a little bit more lively, and always you're going to find a little bit more bait. You'll see bait going underneath the boat. You'll see it around you, and those are the kind of the signs that you're at least in the right area, and then you'll figure out what bait they want.
So the health of the grass is pretty clutch.
I think so. That's a big largemouth thing.
Yeah.
Like when you look at like reeds and things, you want to be picking the healthiest looking reeds, and applying that to salt water, you want to be looking at the healthiest looking eelgrass. So kind of going around, if you're picking off really vibrantly green pieces of grass off your bait, not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's actually telling you you're kind of in the right area.
Oh, okay.
And in Mission, because it's so shallow, crankbaits work great there. I've heard of some really epic crankbites. A lot of blades. Like the war blade is basically just like a swim jig that works really good at Mission Bay. Underspins, those kind of things, because it's shallow. You're not really worried about depth so much. So you can use a flashy swimmer almost anywhere, and you can catch fish. The halibut fishing in Mission Bay, don't ask me about, because I've never caught one. I've heard lots of stories. I've seen them. I know they're there, but I don't even think I've ever caught a short in Mission. Straight spotties for me.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, since you brought it up, crankbaits.
Yeah.
Do you like fishing them?
I'm getting really into it. Yeah, I'm getting super into it. It's kind of this whole category of its own now for me. It's really, really cool, because you can fish them at basically any speed, at virtually any depth, if you have enough crankbaits. And it gives you it's first off a new way to catch the same fish, but it's also so much fun because they hit it for whatever reason so much more aggressively than they would a paddle tail or soft plastic, and you can cover a lot of water really quickly. I kind of use it as a search bait, and if they bite the crank a couple times, I know that they're pretty aggressive because they've got to be in a biting mood to bite it.
How's your arm after fishing crankbait?
It all depends on your setup. Actually, that's what I've been really kind of trying to like dial in. Is that I love fishing Phoenix rods. So I was using their crankbait rod. It's called an X11, and it was like a 10 to 25 pound cranking rod. And I just never really liked it that much. It was a real bendy kind of floppy rod. I got another one from Phoenix. It's called a Feather, and it's just a little bit more refined. It's much more sensitive, and I put a slightly smaller reel on it. I have a Corrado 70 with like 20-pound braid or 15-pound braid, and I can feel every single movement of that crankbait now. Yeah. And it's real cool because I can like feel it wobbling, and if it gets a piece of grass, I can know right away. Or if it gets bit, it like is very, very obvious. So I would say that if you're not super stoked on your crankbait fishing or you're not doing that well, maybe make fine tunings to your setup. Maybe put it on a different setup and just try it out. Because for me, that was like a game changer. Yeah, I got a new setup, and all of a sudden, I was like way more confident in the bait. I was trying it a lot more, and lo and behold, I was catching more fish on it.
And that kind of says a lot for almost any kind of fishing, where it's like, okay, if you have the right setup, or if you fine tune it to your liking, it's a game changer.
Absolutely,
100%.
Same thing with like jerk baits too.
Yeah,
like if you get like the really like an awesome jerk bait setup, you can be thwacking away at that thing, and you'll catch a whole bunch of fish when it used to be like this cumbersome, like not very fun technique because it like hurt you,
yeah.
So, yeah, crankbait fishing. It's something that I've really gotten. It's fun, super fun. There's all these different kind of cranks you can get to.
Oh, I know. You can spend a small fortune on those.
It's dangerous. Honestly,
I know. With do you like feeling every little bump and nook and cranny on a crankbait?
Yeah, I do. Especially when I'm fishing around eelgrass and stuff, because a lot of the times the presentation is pretty much ruined as soon as you catch that grass. So the ideal is that you want a bait that dives to the point where it's just ticking that tops of the grass. You don't want it digging into the mud because it's going to get snagged with stuff especially in mission, like every single cast. You want something that's diving almost to the bottom but not quite. It's got to be about 2 feet off the bottom.
So you have to know at what depth that crankbait actually goes.
Oh, yeah.
Like at all times. And
it changes all the time, too. Like the tide will rise by a foot, and the crankbait that you've been killing it on all day is now a foot too high, and you're not going to catch any fish. So that's why having a variety of crankbaits, and that's why we're talking about it's freaking expensive sometimes because you got to like build a crazy like collection of these things.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of fine tune it like that, and you'll, and even like the diameter of your line will vary the depth that your plug will swim. So it's just kind of having some constants and then adjusting based on the condition until you find one that works and use it until it maybe doesn't, and then maybe use one that's, if you're getting snagged now, maybe use one that's half a size smaller or maybe half a size bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've fished crankbaits a little bit. Actually, speaking of the devil, Matt Florentino got me into it. Matt and Benny, and I've been collecting them here and now, and now and again and all that. But it's one of those things where it's just you gotta spend time on the water and just feel it out.
Oh yeah,
and that's all it is. And I'm still fine tuning my gear.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly like in love with the setup that I use it now, but I will get there.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's it.
It helps when you have a buddy who works at a tackle store too.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. But that's awesome, mate. How much with the holiday coming up, or I guess past, and now Christmas coming up and all that stuff? How much fishing are you gonna try and do over the wintertime?
We'll see. As much as I can,
course,
as everybody says, I'm trying to get out to the bay, hopefully maybe once a week.
That's pretty good.
We're still kind of in the swordfish season. I'm going to do a swordfish deep drop this Sunday. So We're kind of still on that. I might do a trout trip. There's also going to be some trout that are going to be stocked in the lakes around here. Nice. It's not something I focus a lot of time on, but it's fun to go out a couple of times.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I'm still going to be working at PCBT. I'm going to be doing a little more work with BD, it seems like. So
nice.
All good things.
Yeah. Good for you. That's cool, man. Well, we do have one last event coming up, the toy drive.
Yes, we do.
I'm super stoked about it.
Me too.
How about you?
I'm super stoked about it. I mean, I've never really been a part of a toy drive before, but my mom has. She's been like around these kind of events for years. This is kind of like what she does. So
Bread and butter.
oh yeah, absolutely. So I've been a part of invited to these toy drives and I've seen it, and it's always a super cool event. It's
for sure.
great vibes. You know, people always bring more, like above and beyond than you'd ever expect. Super cool. Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
I think this is number 4 or 5 for us or
Awesome.
something.
Right on.
Yeah. But it's always, it's kind of like a feel good deal where, we're collecting toys for the military families in San Diego. So it benefits
Nice.
local families.
Right on.
That's fantastic. And, I think over time we've gotten more and more successful. And, we got to the point last year, we were over at BNS and all that. And we had, I think, 3 truckfuls of toys. 3 truckfuls.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the angling
Shout out
community.
BNS too. They're
Yes. Oh, they're my boys. I mean, when it comes to the angling community, when it comes to fishermen, fisherwomen, all that stuff, super generous with their time, with their toys, with their money, and all that. And it's almost like a good cause helping a good cause, with CCA helping out with the toy drive and all that. We're always trying to help as much as we can. So
Absolutely.
it's a good event.
Absolutely. Nothing but good coming out of it.
Yeah. And so we have a fishing tournament correlated with it. Are you going to fish it?
Of course I am. Yes. Absolutely.
Nice. It's part of our Coastal Social Bass series. So basically,
Yes.
you go to coastalsocial.org, register. It's you register for free for this one, but your entry fee is an unwrapped toy.
Boom.
Yeah.
There we go.
Super simple. But yeah, bring your toys down to Dana Landing December 2nd. We're going to be there from around 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. We'll have lunch for everyone too, and collecting toys. And if you don't want to fish, still, that's totally fine. You can still come by the landing,
It's gonna be a
drop
great
off your
event.
toys.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
It'll be fun.
Say hi. If you want to go fish some spotties, I'll be there. It's gonna be. Hopefully, the weather's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, and we'll be here recording some podcasts too, and just kind of, just talking.
Hanging out.
Hanging out,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. And it's going to be, relatively short, 8 to 12, nothing major and all that, Dana Landing. And it's going to be fun. It's always a good time.
Always a good time.
Yeah. So make sure to go register, coastalsocial.org. And it'll be fun, and we'll see you guys there. You'll get to see Nate, me, Darren, Tony, I think is coming. So
Bring your rods.
Yeah.
Bring your crankbaits. Let's get it.
yeah. Well, okay, since you brought it up, what do you think you're going to be fishing that day? Or what do you think?
I mean, I'll bring a variety of things.
Yeah.
In terms of like slow baits, one of the baits that I've really kind of gotten turned on to is some type of shrimp Ned setup. So there's a couple different ones. Gulp has a really good shrimp bait. Z-Man has a really good shrimp bait. A lot of companies have shrimp baits because shrimp gets bit everywhere. But especially in San Diego and Mission Bay, ghost shrimp is a huge part of these fish's diet. So when you're kind of struggling with the paddle tails, or if you're not getting bit on like bait fish presentations, having a craw or a shrimp on the bottom and you cast that out and you're just bumping bottom really slow can actually get you a lot of bites. And a lot of times that's a really good way to get some variety too. Talking about, corvinas and especially bonefish.
Right.
They are primarily shrimp eaters. So probably gonna have a shrimp hide on. Probably gonna have a paddle tail with a little Cool Baits underspin. That's like a classic of mine.
Interesting.
High tech. Crankbaits. I love the Berkeley Dredger. They're a little bit more affordable. The Strike King 3XD works really well. The 5XD works well. Megabass work well, but again, they're like $20. So I'm not gonna push them too hard. But they all work. You want to kind of target. Like I said, it's all about mostly depth. If you get that bait that's running super well and is taking the tops of the grass, it's those fish are gonna have a tough time saying no.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for coming in. I know
Absolutely.
it's Black Friday, and a lot of. I swear, I pulled in the parking lot, and there was it was a ghost town. I'm like,
I know, I've never seen this empty before.
are we not working today, or is this a holiday too?
Right?
Yeah.
I guess it's turned into one. But
Yeah, for sure, man. Nate, before we get going here, name off your socials and all that, and how do
Sure.
people get a hold of you?
Yeah, NatGeo211 is my Instagram handle.
Cool.
Yeah. You can also find me at Pacific Coast Bait and Tackle. I do all of their like social kind of stuff there. And Nate Win Outdoors is my YouTube account. I'm posting little clips from my fishing. So if you want to follow me, follow those three. Stoked for you guys. Thank you for tuning in, staying around till this.
Yeah,
See you in the next one.
yeah, for sure. We're we're gonna say goodbye on YouTube. Bye, YouTube.
See you, YouTube.
Yep, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.